Join the team.
Hey team, it's McGuire Review, and today we're going to take a look at a brand new board game from Paizo. Now this carries the Pathfinder brand, which is pretty cool. It's a Pathfinder board game, you could say. It is called the Goblin Firework Fight, which is a great name for a board/card game right off the bat. This does MSRP for $29.99, and it is 2 to 4 players, ages 14 plus, and 30 minutes. So it's one of these, kind of quick, get it out, super simplistic rules. There's actually 2 different ways to play this game. I would say kind of a basic or base game, and then what they call their advanced game, which really isn't even that advanced. It just adds a couple more things to the game to add a few more mechanics in as you're playing. Now, I will also mention that Slime Life Games is on this one with Paizo. So that's the partnership that you're going to find here on this particular new game. From a review perspective, and that's how we're going to do these. I mean, obviously it is a review. We're going to look at what's in the box. We're going to talk about gameplay. But I do want to kind of review this product as well, because we don't see a lot of... Let's just classify this as a board game. We don't see a lot of board games coming out of, generally, Paizo. They do have a number of different card games and things from that perspective. But this is what I would consider kind of an out-of-the-box sort of board game that has the Pathfinder and Paizo branding on it. Pretty cool. I've been excited about this one to play it and make a video on it and tell people about it, because I do think it is a really fun game. We'll start with the box. The box just, whoever the product designer kind of on this, bravo, because this box screams by me. I mean, look at the artwork. It's super high quality artwork, really bright colors. I love the 3 goblins on the front here, just having a great time with all the fireworks and the loot and everything. It's just really well done, really cool. And you've got that kind of on every side, as well as you've got the pig there on the box, and that's actually a big component and part of this game. If you do know kind of the lore about Pathfinder and the goblins, they've got these pigs, we'll say, as kind of pets. So that's pretty cool that they added that in. Nice thick box, so the box is really high quality and well done. You've got your rule book, just a few components. We'll just grab all those and get them right out of the box. This awesome bag. I love this bag with the goblin kind of logo there on it. This is really cool. And frankly, you do utilize this bag in the game. It is kind of used for a specific mechanic that's called stealing in this game. So you will use this, but really you could use any bag if you really liked this bag and wanted to just keep it for a super cool dice bag to carry around a bunch of dice, because it is a nice, thick, high-quality bag. It's got some nice, high-quality strings that are on there that tie it, and I just love that goblin logo that they put on there. It's so cool. When I opened this up and I pulled that out, I didn't realize this bag was in here. I'm like, nice. That's cool. Okay. So that's all we got in the box. That literally is it. There are tokens that are in this bag, so we'll go ahead and get those out, and we'll explain these tokens. There's a number of them. They all have the same, and we'll kind of get Bear to do some up-close work here. They all have the same goblin logo or printing that's on the back of the token, and then on the front you've got a number of different things. This happens to be one of the pigs. You've got shields, you've got dog slicers, and you've got a bomb, as well as rockets. That's everything. Rockets, it's your fireworks that are on this side, and they come in different numbers. There's either 2 of them, 3 of them, or 4 of them printed on a token, and that's how many points they'll be worth. Pretty much everything else is worth 1 point. The pickle, we'll talk about that, is worth a number of points for the number of players at the end of the game. And then your bomb is -3 points if you have that at the end of the game. So it's got all of those like components and pieces that you would expect from a goblin sort of Pathfinder perspective. You got the dog slicers, you've got the bomb, you've got the pickle. So I think they did really good job with that in just the design of the product. Okay. And then you do have a little baggie here that did come with the game, and then a number of different types of cards. So you're going to have advanced goblin cards, and we'll talk about each one of these. You're going to have your basic goblin cards. You're going to have your Squealy Nord cards, and those come in 2 different types, and we'll talk about those as well. All right, so we've got those. And then we have our Goblin trick cards. And these are kind of sort of, these are going to be basically that card that you have a couple of them to start the game if you're playing the advanced game, and you can gain more of them over the course of the game, and they're just kind of the, hey, I'm going to do this to you. No, you're not. It's really more of that mechanic is what these cards do, as well as these cards will also, some of them, be worth points at the end of the game. So some of these you may just hang on to. You would never get rid of them. And then at the end of the game, you'd flip them over. Is this one? This is one. So Hidden Firework. It's worth 1 point at the end of the game. Do not reveal until the end of the game. So you would just keep this and you would just flip it over at the end of the game. You're not going to get a lot of points that way from these cards. I think the most you can get is worth 2. There is a Rotten Apple that's worth -2, but you really want to give that away. No, here's one that's worth 3. And there's only one of those. So there's one card in here that's worth 3 points at the end of the game if you have it, and there's only one. Most of the other ones are worth 1 to 2 points. So it's just a little bit of boost there at the end, and I don't find, like, some people don't like that mechanic where it's just like, oh, the luck of the draw, you got 1 or 2 of those cards, so you end up winning because you got them. There's so many other things that happen in the game, I really wouldn't say that, that's really going to swing things too far. Okay. And then we've got our rule books. You can see everything that we've got there. If we look at our rule book, it's got a little bit of a different design. It's not a book that would have all the pages in it. It opens up kind of pamphlet style, and you've basically got your overview, your components, and your setup. And then you would fold it down, and then you have 4 other page sections that would then go over playing the game. It explains the Squealy Nord and the 2 types of cards that we have. It explains the stealing mechanic, which is one of the primary mechanics in this game. And then it explains what happens at the end of the game and winning, and then it gives you the advanced game rules. So we'll just start with, like, what's the basic game? So the outside of startup, we'll kind of set that aside for a minute. You're going to essentially flip over all these tokens where you can't see what they are. Okay, so they're all going to be kind of that goblin face, and I'm not going to do it to all of them here, but you're going to flip all these tokens over to the goblin face. All right, some of them you're going to take out depending on the number of players, you're going to set aside, and everybody's going to start the game with one of these basic goblin cards. Now, this essentially represents you as a player, and they are pretty cool. I mean, all of these cards have really cool artwork on them, represent miniatures they've done in the past, things from that perspective. And they do have start with, so everybody will start with essentially a 2 rocket token and a shield. Okay? They'll start with those 2 tokens. And you are essentially ready to play the game at that point. You will have your Squealy Nord cards as well, and you'll start the game, even in the basic game, by use of those. You won't use the Goblin trick cards in the basic game, but you will use the Squealy Nord cards in the basic game. There are a couple cards that are in here that you will remove from this deck that has to do with this deck. Basically, it's a card that tells you to draw something from this deck, so you will remove those 2 cards. Other than that, there are 2 different types of Squealy Nord cards. You have the standard Squealy Nord, and then you have something called a Squealy Nord Truffle Treasure. The Squealy Nord cards are essentially going to change the way the game is played, but it's very minor things. Like this one, for instance, Deflected says, this round when a shield is selected from the pile, the player that takes it may steal from another player. So it's either going to be this extra little bonus that happens, or it's going to be within that round, or it's going to kind of change the game, go forward for the whole game. And the whole game is 10 rounds, okay? So it is a pretty short game. That's how these Squealy Nord cards are going to be used. The ones that are called the Squealy Nord Truffle Treasure are also shuffled into that deck, and when those come up, those generally provide end-of-game points, depending on different things you've collected over the course of the game. So there's a little set collection aspect that's usually there. So this one says, Big Red Firework. At the end of the game, give this to the player with the most red fireworks. Pass the first player pickle. So when this is drawn, you're going to put it down in front of you. And at the end of the game, whoever has the most red fireworks, and that may then change which tokens you're trying to select after this card comes out to look for the ones that have an actual red firework printed on them. But then you're also going to have that little action that's going to immediately activate, where if you happen to have the first player pickle, which just means you get to go first in that round, that would then pass clockwise to the next person. So that's what's going to happen when these come out. And there's other ways this pickle can move from person to person as well. It can be taken. It's not really a stealing action, but it can be taken, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. So that's how these Squealy Nord cards are going to work. And essentially, you're going to have that deck right next to this pile. And every time you do flip over a token, and it's one of these Squealy Nords, you're going to draw you're going to draw from the deck, and anyone can be flipping over the tokens and selecting them. Really, I mean, it could be the person's that's active for that turn, but anybody really can flip over the tokens. You're going to flip over 4 of them every single round, we'll say. And if you flip over the Squealy Nord, you draw the card, you do the thing, you then take that token out, and then you flip another token. And you continue to do that. Like if you got 2 out of the 4 of these, you would do 2, and then you always replace and go back, so you have 4 tokens that you would do something with from a selection perspective. Okay, these cards will indicate at the beginning of the game who starts the game with the pickle. And again, the pickle does nothing more than when a round starts, that's the round is going around from that person, right? That's kind of the first person that's starting, and you want to kind of move that around, because if you're always the last, then you're always selecting the last token. So having this allows you to have really the option of the 4 tokens that have been displayed for that new round, I get to choose first if I have the pickle. All right, and then at the very end of the game, the pickle is worth the amount of victory points as there are players in the game. So that's a nice little boost as well, because playing a 4-player game, that single token is worth 4 points, and that really does make a difference at the end of the game. So having control of that pickle is important. Controlling the pickle is important. Okay, the only other special, and then we're going to go over the basic tokens here in a second, but the only other special token is the bomb token. It is worth -3 points. And you would think if the bomb token came up as one of the 4 tokens revealed for that round, why would you ever select it if it is -3 points at the end of the game if you have it? Well, the benefit would come into the stealing mechanic, because any tokens that you select and you kind of own as a player, when someone else steals from you, you take all of your tokens, you put them in the bag, shake it, and then that person draws out one of those tokens. And whatever this is. That person will draw out one of those tokens. Now, based on what that token is, a number of different things is going to happen, and I'll explain that as well. But that bomb may deter someone from wanting to steal from you, especially when you have a low number of tokens, because they may pull that bomb. And if they get that bomb, they're stuck with that bomb now, and they have -3 points. So I've found it's good strategy to grab that bomb if you have a minimum amount of tokens and it's earlier in the game, because then you can kind of deter people for the most part to want to steal from you, because you have that potential of them grabbing that bomb. But you're going to want to get rid of that thing before the end of the game. So there is a risk there with going for the bomb or not. That is the only other really special token in this game, and that's how that mechanic will work with that bomb. And I do find that being kind of a fun thing, because when someone does risk it and they reach in and they pull out that bomb, it's hilarious, because they've now stolen nothing from you, they've helped you, and now they have -3 points, especially if it happens near the end of the game. It's just hilarious. Okay, that's how the bomb works. Now, we've talked about the Squealy Nord, we've talked about the bomb, we've talked about the pickle. Other than that, we have shields, we have fireworks, and we have dog slicers. Those are the only other type of tokens. Fireworks will come in 2, 3, and 4 point value. It literally is nothing more than just however many are on the token. Dog slicers are all worth 1 point, and a shield is worth 1 point. Now, the shields and the dog slicers are a little bit different. They do different things. If you were to select the shield and say that's the token I'm going to say, okay, now it's the next person's turn, and they would select from these 3 if those are the 4 that were chosen for that round. That just means I get, if I have that shield at the end of the game and I have that token, it's worth 1 point. The benefit to having multiple shields in your collection of tokens over the course of the 10 rounds is, let's say you had all of these, but you had a couple shields as well, and then someone wanted to steal from you. Well, you'd take all your tokens, you'd put it in the bag, you'd shake it up, and they'd reach in and they'd take a token and steal it from you. Well, if they pulled out a shield, they get nothing. They don't even get that shield. They get nothing. The steal was blocked. You get all your tokens back. I'll go ahead and hit the dog slicer now. When you select the dog slicer, you could just select it and it's worth 1 point. At that point of selecting a dog slicer, you could choose that you want to steal from another player, and then you would do the steal action, just like I explained. You'd pick a player, anyone you want, you'd say, I want to steal from you, and I can steal from you now because that's the only way that you can activate a steal, is by selecting one of these dog slicers. And then you just go through that same process. Any of those rules I've already explained would already apply. The only thing we haven't talked about is if they would go to steal and pull out a dog slicer, they get to keep that dog slicer, and then they get to steal from you again. So there's the trade-off of going down the route. So you have some players that may want to always select dog slicers and have a bunch of dog slicers because they're allowed to steal a lot, and they're getting stuff from stealing. But they're also putting more of those dog slicers into their pool of their own tokens. So if someone else steals from them, they have a higher percentage chance of pulling dog slicer after dog slicer out of this bag and stealing more and more and more. So there's the trade-off and the mechanic of how that dog slicer works. And I think that actually was designed and is balanced pretty well. So I really like the shield and the dog slicer mechanic that's added into selecting these tokens. That's really cool. Okay, we talked about there was another way to be able to get this pickle. The only other way to obtain that pickle, outside of stealings from someone and you just randomly happen to draw it out of the bag, is, let's say you were starting a round, you selected, you pulled your 4 goblin tokens and you flipped them all over, and it got to you and you didn't want any of those things. You could choose to not select a token and just go take the pickle from one of the other players. You can't ever say, I don't want to choose anything, I'm stealing it from myself, to just retain it over and over and over again. You can't do that. But if it sits with somebody else, you can select the pickle token to be your token for that round, except, outside of any of the other tokens that have been presented for the round. Okay? That's the only other way you can get this pickle. And again, you would think, well, I would probably want to do that a lot. Not necessarily, because there may be the chance to get 3 and 4 point firework tokens. So that's what the trade-off is there. All right, those are all the rules of the game. The game will end when 10 rounds have been completed. And then what will happen is everybody will get one opportunity to steal from someone else. If you continue to select dogs, if you continue to get dog slicers, you can continue that steal with that same person. But every player basically can steal from one other player, and then you tally up all of your points on all of your tokens and anything that would have happened with these Squealy Nord cards over the course of the game. That's the basic game. Now for the advanced game, you're not going to use your green cards. You're going to use these blue cards. And frankly, I would suggest just playing the game in its advanced form. It doesn't add that much more stuff. You have more choice here as well. It doesn't add that much more stuff, and I think it just has still a super simple amount of basic mechanics and gameplay. It just makes it more fun. So the artwork is upgraded. It's supposed to be kind of an upgraded Goblin, and you will still have kind of the basic starting. Everybody starts with the 2 fireworks and the shield. The difference is every Goblin has a once per game special power. Like Rita here, flip this card when you finish stealing from someone, steal from them again. So it doesn't matter if you pull the dog slicer or not, you can automatically steal from them again. And to indicate you've used your once per game special power, because there's nothing else on this card you need past that point, you'd flip your card over. So that's part of the advanced. You'll get the advanced Goblin with the once per game power that I think is pretty cool. And I would say they're all balanced pretty well. They're fairly basic things. They're not like overpowered types of things. It's more like, hey, you try to steal from me, no you can't. Or I just steal from you, I can steal from you again. It's that kind of game power. And then you're going to implement your Goblin trick cards. Everybody will start with 2 of these, okay? You just deal them out. Everybody starts with 2. and you keep them secret. You look at them, and again, we've already gone over this. They're either going to be cards that are going to offer that very end of game, like extra point or two, or they're going to be cards that are going to counter things, like the Rotten Apple. Give one Rotten Apple card to a player after they steal from you. You can give this card away later if someone steals from them. Okay? The Big Heist. Discard after you steal from a player to steal from that player again. So even these could be similar to some of the once per game powers that some of these goblins have. Like this one's identical to the one we just read here from Rita. That's how the trick cards are going to work. You're just going to have 2 of them unless you flip one of these Squealy Nords that allow you to draw another one. And usually it's everybody in the game gets to draw another one. It's not just you. Okay? That's going to be the other component to the advanced game, and that's really going to be it. That's the entire game, basic and advanced and all rules. I do really like this game. I when I got it out of the box, as I said, I first looked at it and I thought, I love the components, I love the box, I love the packaging from a product presentation perspective, and the price. The artwork, liking Pathfinder, I think that's a piece of it, a little bias there. Like Pathfinder, like the IP. It really screamed at me. It was like, okay, this is cool. I want this. This is awesome. I'm going to have fun with it. When I started to play, I did kind of have this initial, I don't know. Like when I first just read the rules, I thought maybe this is a little too basic. And I wasn't really sure. But after playing a few games, and again, I usually play these games 3 to 4 times before I make these videos, so I've got a good feel for different numbers of players as well as utilization of the different mechanics and seeing how the game can kind of play out different ways. I really, really started to like this game, and it will be one that I'm pretty sure will just stay in my collection because it's just one of those games that you can get out for 2 to 4 players. You're playing within minutes. There's little to no setup time. There's little to no components. It's got a small footprint. You could put it all in a little baggie if you wanted to travel somewhere. And it's simple, it's fun, it's one of those beer and pretzels kind of games. And especially if you're playing with an RPG crew that knows the Pathfinder IP and the artwork, they're going to have a blast with this game. Okay? So that's Paizo's brand new Goblin Firework Fight. If you can find this and get your hands on it, it is out there and available now. Grab the top of that box. That's where all the sweet artwork is. So I do highly recommend this game. If you like this kind of content, hit that like below. And we do lots of different types of gaming stuff here on the channel. RPG, board games, card games, miniatures stuff. All of it. We've got it all here on the channel. So if you like that kind of stuff, hit the subscribe to get kind of all those types of a gaming spectrum inputs. And with that, keep rolling them crits. This has been the McGuire Review. See you next time.